With the exception of alphabets and number systems, the net may well be the single most powerful mind-altering technology that has ever come into general use. Decades after it first came into existence, the internet and the devices we use to access it have infused themselves into every area of our life. They are, among many other things, our typewriter and our printing press, our map and our clock, our calculator and our telephone, our post office and our library, our radio and our TV. The internet and the technologies it has spawned, in other words, have drastically altered the medium by which we attain information about the world, and at a pace never before seen in history. The shift to the printing press was revolutionary, but the shift to the internet may be even more so. Recent research, however, is suggesting that the emergence of this new medium has a dark side we have yet to fully contend with. This dark side is not just a result of what we consume. It is not just a result of too much social media, too much Netflix, or too much porn, but rather it emerges from the manner in which we interact with this technological medium. In the 1960s, the Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan made the claim that the medium is the message. McLuhan argued that with any new technology which distributes mass information, it is not merely the particular content we absorb which influences and changes us, but rather it is the way in which the technology distributes information which has the greatest effect on our mind. Our conventional response to all media, wrote McLuhan, namely that it is how they are used that counts, is the numb stance of the technological idiot. The content we consume, he continued, is merely the juicy piece of meat carried by the burglar to distract the watchdog of the mind. In preparation to write his Pulitzer Prize-nominated book, The Shallows, Nicholas Carr scoured scientific journals in hopes of better understanding how internet use is affecting us. What he found validated McLuhan's theory. The more time we spend online, the more the internet is restructuring our brain in a very specific manner, irrespective of the type of content we consume. And of all the changes being wrought by the internet, the most detrimental may be the damaging effect it has on our ability to focus. The net is, by design, an interruption system, wrote Carr, a machine geared for dividing attention. Or as he further explained, dozens of studies by psychologists, neurobiologists, educators, and web designers point to the same conclusion. When we go online, we enter an environment that promotes cursory reading, hurried and distracted thinking, and superficial learning. It's possible to think deeply while surfing the net, just as it's possible to think shallowly while reading a book. But that's not the type of thinking the technology encourages and rewards. The main reason why the internet is diminishing our ability to focus is because it is a platform which promotes multitasking and rapid switching between content. Many apps and websites today are literally in the business of distraction. The more posts or pages we click through, the more ads internet companies can display, and the more profit they reap. Thus, along with the content displayed on a post or page, most apps and websites display links to recommended posts, articles, videos, or images which are personalized for us by increasingly sophisticated algorithms. Rather than immersing ourselves in one piece of content for sustained periods, as we do when we read a book or watch a movie, our online browsing habits typically involve rapidly scanning the content of a page and jumping swiftly from one link, one post, one website, one video to the next. The multitasking and rapid switching between content promoted by the internet causes our brains to suffer from what psychologists call switching costs. As we jump from one online item to the next, our brain is repeatedly forced to interrupt its cognitive processes and redeploy its limited resources onto the new task elicited by the new piece of content. This taxes our brain and reduces our cognitive functioning, for as Maggie Jackson explains in her book, Distracted, the brain takes time to change goals, remember the rules needed for the new task, and block out cognitive interference from the previous, still vivid activity. As the switching costs associated with using the internet accumulate, our brain loses the capacity to focus on one task for prolonged periods of time. As a 2009 study from Stanford discovered, those who frequently multitask online are easily distracted by irrelevant environmental stimuli, even when they're not using the internet. In other words, Heavy internet users become habituated to constant distraction from novel and easily accessible stimuli, and as a result, they are scatterbrained, agitated, dazed, and confused. Psychological research long ago proved what most of us know from experience. Frequent interruptions scatter our thoughts, weaken our memory, and make us tense and anxious. Some of us may be aware of the psychological repercussions which arise when we rapidly switch between content online, and thus we may attempt to replace our frenzied browsing habits with a more focused approach. But surprisingly, even if we try to focus deeply on one piece of online content at a time, the mere presence of links on a post or page has a negative effect on our brain that is imperceptible to us, at least in the moment. For as Carr explains, whenever we, as readers, come upon a link, we have to pause, for at least a split second, to allow our prefrontal cortex to evaluate whether or not we should click on it. The redirection of our mental resources from reading words to making judgments may be imperceptible to us. Our brains are quick, but it's been shown to impede comprehension and retention, particularly when it's repeated frequently. As the executive functions of the prefrontal cortex kick in, our brains become not only exercised but overtaxed. In a very real way, the web returns us to the time when reading was a cognitively strenuous act. In reading online, we sacrifice the facility that makes deep reading possible. We revert to being mere decoders of information. Diminishing our ability to focus is not the only way the internet is altering our brain. It's also changing the way we think. Prior to the internet, most people obtained information by reading books, watching television, attending lectures, conversing with others, or